Hello, people. I am Jyotsna, and you are listening to my podcast, Just Being Jyotsna. So, this is my first episode, and I'm going to be pretty much talking about what this podcast is, why I am making this podcast, and I guess I'll figure out the rest as I move on with the episode. So, what is this podcast about? I think this is not about one specific theme or genre because I'm going to be speaking of the smallest and simplest observations from day to day life that have intrigued me, things that have left a mark, be it movies, shows, books, poetry, music, even people and incidents. So, I'm pretty much going to be talking about things that matter to me, hoping that some of them might matter to you as well. So, why am I making this podcast? I think the answer to it is that I want to connect with the people who have felt or observed the same things as me, who have not felt or observed the same things as me. And this is most certainly not an advice podcast. I'm not going to be giving anybody any life advice because I just entered adulthood. What do I know? But what I intend to do with this podcast is give you something to think about, something to agree with, or even disagree with, or something to just smile about whenever you're listening to this. Okay, so I think today I want to talk about a topic that I absolutely love talking about, and that is how fiction affects me. How fiction and other pieces of art, be it poetry, movies, or shows, music, whatever. So, I think I get deeply attached with a few pieces of art, and deeply attached as in I can watch those pieces on repeat. There are movies that I have watched about 4 or 5 times within a month, and I know it sounds silly, but there's something about watching familiar pieces of art, knowing that they are not going to disappoint you. So while I love venturing into new genres and new movies, there is a certain comfort in watching the same thing that you know you love. And one interesting thing about it is that when you absolutely love a piece, no matter how many times you watch it, you find something new in it. It might be the smallest of a eye roll to the smallest of a hand gesture or a smile, or even something in the background setting. But every time you watch something you love, you find something new. At least that has been true for me for every piece of art. If I watch anything the second time, I'll end up feeling a little more close to it than I felt the first time I watched it. Something which is true for a lot of us, right? I don't know. So yes. Talking about observations, when I think about it, I feel like all the ideas I have, all the creative ideas I have, none of them are completely original. Each of those ideas will have at least one element, be it one minute element, of something that is borrowed from a piece of art, be it a piece of art that I like, or be it a piece of art that I did not like and I wanted to contradict. So, yes, I think that a lot of our ideas are never completely original, and that is fine, right? And when I say that's fine, what I mean to say is that the concept of originality is a tricky one, right? How can we be expected to read, listen to, or watch something and not respond to it or not include that in our own creative ideas? So, yes, and sometimes it is so minute, it is not even visible to others. Like, I absolutely love the movies in the Inamili Dobara and especially the poems. So, whenever a poem plays, I'll close my eyes and listen to it. I'm not even kidding. I mean, I absolutely love those poems and I think they are absolute marvels. The good thing with OTT platforms is that I can pause the thing, rewind the thing, and listen to the same poem repeatedly for 3 times. And yeah, I do that. So, let me give you guys an example of when I talk about this originality thing. There was this one poem I wrote a couple of years ago, a poem in Hindi. It's called Sarsarahat. And I don't know, but I find an uncanny similarity between that and the first poem from ZNMD, the one. So I think I'll read both of them out to you guys. So the basic point was that while I felt that the poem I wrote was somewhat in the similar lines of feeling as the first poem, the अपने होने पे मुझको यकीन आ गया poem, none of the people I read it out to or I sent my poem to felt the same even after I said it. So I'll first read out to you guys the poem that I wrote. So, as I said, it is titled Sarsarahat and it goes, वो खामोश सा पहर, वो सरसराता नहर, उस सरसराहट की गूंज उस खिलखिलाहट में थी, नीला सा था समा झील का रंग भी वही, उस सरसराते कंकड़ों से जूझते पानी में एक मुस्कुराहट भी थी, नदी के किनारे खुशी की आहट भी थी और उस नीले से रंग में उतनी ही गहराई जितनी उस झील के पानी में थी. So this was what I wrote and this is the poem I'm talking about. The poem from ZNMD, written by Javed Akhtar, spoken by Farhan Akhtar. पिघले नीलम सा बहता ये समा, नीली नीली सी खामोशियां, ना कहीं है जमी ना कहीं आसमां, सरसराती हुई टहनियां पत्तियां कह रही हैं कि बस तुम हो यहाँ, सिर्फ मैं हूं, मेरी सांसें, मेरी धड़कनें, ऐसी गहराइयां ऐसी तन्हाइयां और मैं, सिर्फ मैं, अपने होने पे मुझको यकीन आ गया. So, the point was that I could not help but feel that the poem I wrote, Sarsarahat, gave me the same feeling that the poem, the Apne Hone Pe Mujhko Yakeen Aa Gaya poem gives me. I'm not saying that it's as marvelous as it, but I felt an uncanny similarity, and when I read it out to people around me, none of them felt it. So, yes, as I said, originality is a very tricky concept. The second thing I want to talk about is inspiration. I think that we gain so much inspiration from fiction that we could never gain so much inspiration from reality. Reality being the things that are immediately around us, because fiction is a really wide world, right? Fiction is so large that reality cannot imbibe everything that the human mind can think. Okay, no, so now I sound like a philosopher, but so what I mean to say is each one of us might look at the same thing at the same point of time and get inspired to different things from it. So I am very impressionable and I remember two instances very clearly where movies inspired me to do something. So there is this movie called Noor, and yes, there's this movie called Noor. It's about a journalist, and when I finished watching that movie, I immediately after finishing that movie recorded a video message and posted it. And I had wanted to do that video message for almost a month by then. So I finished watching that movie. It had completely shaken up my mind, and I went ahead to do it. And I guess the other instant was, yes, I watched the series called Four More Shots Please, and again, that also has a journalist. And when I finished watching a certain episode of that, I was so geared up with my thinking that it was whatever I wrote was not related to that series, but there was this blog post that I wanted to post on my blog for very long, but as soon as I finished that episode, I went ahead and did it. So yes, I think that fiction creeps into our brains and inspires us. Yeah. So I'm not going to go ahead and say that there are no bad pieces of art, because there are. There are bad pieces of art, as in there are pieces that have offended me to the core, that have, so I'll not express strong emotions, but yes, I'll not say there are no bad pieces of art, but I think that most of the pieces have at least some element that is beautiful, or if observed, carry something nice. So yes. The last thing for today's episode that I want to talk about is how everyone's taste and reception of art is different. And there are a lot of us, I might accept, I am guilty of doing this, who tend to impose our liking or disliking for a piece of art to someone who does not feel the same as us. And while that might seem like a very small thing, it happens to it happens to hurt people, because a lot of us are extremely attached to our taste in movies, songs, poetry. So yes, I think that I stopped expressing my extreme dislike for pieces of art in front of people without asking them whether if they actually like that. When I felt really bad about someone actually telling me that a certain movie that I liked was extremely stupid. And yes, so I think there are no superior and inferior pieces of art, and none of us should be embarrassed of what we like, right? There is a certain wave right now which has made people think that Western cinema and even Eastern cinema is somewhat much better than Indian cinema. A lot of us have read Western poets but have not taken time to read Indian poets. Again, I'm not saying that it is necessary that we read Indian poets or watch Indian movies, but I think this feeling of superiority and inferiority of art, that's not going to take us anywhere. And I think it's the same case with the belief that pieces of fiction need to be realistic or pieces of fiction need to be believable, because there is, as I said, every piece hits people a different way. So there is a certain feeling that realistic pieces give, and there is a certain feeling that fantasy gives, because I don't think that realistic fiction can inculcate everything that fantasies can, because as I said, the human mind span is really large, right? So yes, I think fantasy is as important as realistic fiction. So I guess that brings me to the end of the first episode of my podcast. And if you have managed to listen till the end, lots of love to you. Thank you, and I will be back with a new episode talking about a different topic. So that's all. Bye bye.